what I'm concerned, and those who's watching us, they should very carefully answer these questions for themselves. Your generation of people give up everything they had, their guitars, their favorite things, their burgers, their way of life, big cars, their possibility of big jobs and mundane success, put up ropes and went to preach worldwide, country to country, door to door. My question is, do you believe this great middle class, which has so much appreciation for Vedic culture, will have several group of Indian people who finally will say to themselves, family, professional work, like income, that's not what I'm trying to make a goal in my life. I want to go follow footsteps of great Mahajans, great devotees. I'm willing to sacrifice myself and go preach door to door to those professionals. Maybe, computer to computer.
It'll be, the only qualifier I put on that is it will be done through digital media.
Right.
Because think about this, factor this in. They have the largest cinema producing country in the world.
Right.
They produce more films than Hollywood.
Than us. They produce more
They produce more films than the rest of the world combined, right? And they've reached a level of sophistication that's on par with anybody.
Right.
So their task will be, through media, to disseminate spiritual culture of India.
Right, but you need to dedicate yourself. You might be a member of digital ashram, but unless you...
So you can dedicate yourself to the digital ashram.
So...
Digital sadhu sangha.
It's a new opportunity for you guys. If anybody of you watching our talks, I want you to send us your feedback and letters. And we want to know what you think about future of Indian spiritual revolution. We'd like you to know any questions about, Krishna consciousness and culture, and we'd like to establish some communications with you. So please don't be just a silent viewer.
See, Vedic culture, the British tried to represent Vedic culture as if they were comparable to the primitives of Africa. This was propaganda. When they arrived in India, normally they'd go to some country on, doing their imperialism thing, which, as someone said, they did imperialism right. They never said they were coming to introduce, democracy or anything. They just said, we're going to take over your place. We're better than you are. We're superior than you are. We're going to make you see things the way we do. So when they were doing that, usually they go to some place where they could pull that off. When they came to India, it's a little different. They found something that was more sophisticated than what they themselves had, a more sophisticated, comprehensive spiritual system than back home with the Judeo-Christian tradition. Okay. So they tried to, through what is it called in Russian? Disinformacji? Disinformation. Yes. The Russians gave us this word.
Well, we are
the masters of disinformacji. So, but the British were pretty good at it too. So they told the rest of the world, these people, what is an Indian like? Well, like the African, they're wearing the paint on their face and the beads, and they have the tribal dance and the chant. So, like those primitive people in Africa. Right? But not like that. Why? What the first separator? Vedic literature. The finest minds of today could not produce a book on equally sophisticated to what you find in Puranic literature, the Vedas, etc. These are obviously not the books of primitives, but on the contrary, the inverse. These are the books, they're written in Devanagari, the language of the gods. These are the books that have descended from a superior culture, a superior civilization.
I'd like to attack you a little bit, in a good way.
Yeah.
See, in Russia and in many countries, we believe that people in America perceive very superficial values like democracy and other things and try to market them to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Don't you afraid that what happened with Western civilization is accepting some Vedic concept without going into them deep? We Western people,
Sure.
instead of coming to India with very primitive understanding of what this culture is and try to, you know, apply our primitive-like concept
Yes.
to this great Vedic culture.
Of course,
and
appropriating it for our own
Right.
malpurpose. Yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur deals with this. And what I find interesting and found interesting since I was a teenager, as we mentioned before, growing up in New York, reading Bhagavad Gita, that the book itself deals with deviation, modification, adulteration of spiritual substance. I found that endearing. That in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, in time, what was given is lost. Right? It degraded. And the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, what is Krishna, his parting words to Uddhava? The slok that mentions, Paramparjena Prakriti Bhaichitra. He said, Prakriti here means temperament. He's saying, according to the temperament of the receiver, the truth, it undergoes modification. Right? The famous example in classrooms, teachers would do in journalism or in other disciplines. There's 40 students, 10 in each row. They tell the first person in the row, they tell them something. And then they have to turn to the person next to them to tell them all the way down the row, back up. And then the last person stands up. And then the teacher will say, all right, here's the first person, here's what was said, and here's the last person to receive it. And then everyone starts laughing. Because in time, with each telling, it degraded, it became modified, adulterated, until it turned into something completely different. So Krishna is dealing with that in the Bhagavad Gita. He's saying, this happens, factor this in, guaranteed it will happen. He's not saying, well, sometimes it happens, but it'll never happen to us. We're so sincere. No, he's not saying that. He's Krishna. He's saying this happens. This is the nature of the mundane world. There's some divine revelation, some revealed truth. There are receivers of that. And then according to their individual temperament, it's modified. And then they pass it on to another. And you have a parampara, a line of descent. Now, just for the sake of argument, it's also possible for it to become enhanced. As in the line of the Rupanuga line, the Goswamis, they're tasting that substance, it's becoming even more relishable. That's also possible. But more possible and more likely is adulteration, modification, degradation.
Okay, here's the question.
Wait, to finish. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, in conclusion, in summary, the truth is always inevitably, invariably converted into error. Right? Someone say, oh. Then the good news, he said, therefore, living revelation, living realization will always be constantly necessary to restore the truth to its former purity. So therefore, it's the job of each generation in a living way to realize revealed truth.
Well, that's all good and philosophically proper. But I had a friend in New York, I write about him on my blog. He was that much sincere. He would say sometimes, I don't really know if I'm man or woman. I don't really know if I'm right or wrong. Meaning like a sincere person always not sure about whether he's doing something right or wrong, or whether he understood Vedic or any other.
Well, Guru Maharaj has another way of defining sincerity.
Yes.
He says sincerity means appreciation for the truth.
Yes.
So otherwise, yes, in a general sense, Guru Maharaj also points, you can have a sincere criminal. He's very sincere about what he's doing, and he cares about his boss and their group, and he's willing to he's loyal, he's willing to sacrifice for the group, and so that's a relative application of sincerity, but when we speak about it in a more refined sense, it will be demonstrated. Otherwise, you can have a sincere Nazi, you know, well, you do, who pays their bills on time, you know, who loves children. So it really, sincerity has to be viewed in terms of relation to the truth, what the truth is. So if someone rightly says, well, I don't know, all right, then that doesn't mean that nobody knows. Like sometimes you say, well, no one knows. No, it's not that no one knows. Nobody you know knows would be more accurate. There may be someone who knows. Just you and those you know do not know. Don't say that nobody knows. Right? So then, as Prabhupada would say in the Bhagavad Gita, that person who realizes that material life, material existence, he says, is a source of perplexity at every step, it behooves such a person to approach a spiritual master and take guidance.
Wow,
we take guidance for everything. Everybody watching us, or many people, they have GPS. Right? They're not opposed to taking. Why? Because they understand the value of this device will give indicators of how I should proceed. So for us, you say a sincere person, a spiritually progressive person, they need spiritual GPS, which comes in the form, what we call it, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vaishnava, means spiritual teachers, the spiritual books, spiritual practitioners. You come in connection with them, put yourself under their guidance, and then that revealed truth expressed by them becomes like a magnetic north by which you can navigate the world in existence.
You know, I feel what you just said right now.
Yeah.
It's worth like dedicate next show to talk about all these things in a more
Sure.
deep way. But especially for those who's watching us from India, they know in every village, in every little ashram, there'll be some person who claims himself a guru because he knows more than you, or he's been indicated by a local community, or he's
And every town there's a goldsmith also.
Okay.
And he's supposed to have gold. Right? So, but whether or not he's giving you 24 karat gold, 22, 18, 14, 12, gold plate, gold wash, gold leaf, without becoming acquainted with the qualities and characteristics of gold and the method for determining its substance, you're likely to be cheated. So that's why there's a system to analyze this substance to see what the carat is. Is it 24, 22, etc. There's also a spiritual system. If someone's serious about it, they'll, like, you go to a goldsmith because apparently he has some certificate, some reputation for dealing in actual substance. So there's a spiritual parallel to that.
See, this is a great answer for someone like you, with your ability, sharpness of the mind, your clear goals and objectives. But what about some very, very simple people who most say to themselves, well, all religion is good, all spiritual people is good, I revere them all, but they're not really able to identify.
Chekhov says in one of his plays, describing one man, he goes, he was a simple man, a stupid man. So there's simple-hearted and simpleton. So someone who's interested to advance spiritually, we're told, Hridayena vinugyato yodharmasta nibodhita. They will factor in that I have a strong tendency towards self-deception. I can see it in my life, in my circumstances. Right? So knowing that I have a tendency to do that, let this not be another example of that, my making spiritual connections. So then we have to look into tradition, lineage, etc. Gandhi when the British were there, he realized that khadi, the cloth made by the charka and from the cotton and the weavers by hand, it's every aspect of it is hand. He thought, this is good for India. It's good for the people in the villages, it's good for the country. So if you believe in India, just buy khadi. Don't buy the factory mill cloth of the British. So a movement started growing. But then the British are very clever. In their factory, they learned how to produce cloth that looks like khadi. So they started selling it. So this led him to establish the Khadi Sangha. It's still there in Calcutta and other places you can find.
I bought some stuff there.
Yeah. So the Khadi Sangha. And what he's saying, we're starting an association. Us who really know what Khadi is and the pure thing. It will have our stamp and our seal on it. If it does not have the stamp and seal of the Khadi Sangha, it's counterfeit. It's not the real thing. So, in something as serious as spiritual culture, someone's going to have to invest some time, some energy, do some research. But ultimately, what Manu says, and what I quoted, Yo dharmastat nibo, hridayena bhinugato, yo dharmastat nibodata, saying ultimately it's an affair of the heart. And now we're back to that point. Simple-hearted or simpleton? Self-deceiver or sincere, earnest hankering for the truth? So Srila Guru Maharaj has an aphorism that actually applies to everything, including all the varieties of theistic culture that you could possibly conceive. Everything is included within this one sutra-like expression, in which he says, according to the inner sincere hankering of your heart, you will come in connection with a particular level of theistic conception and subsequent association. That's guaranteed. So then what we're left with is, oh, then as long as I'm sincere, everything will be all right. As long as I'm sincere, I'll make the right choice. As long as I'm sincere, ultimately I'll get there. And that's again grounded in the Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna, Nahi kalyanakrit kaschit durgatim tatagachyati, which Guru Maharaj renders sometimes as, the sincere will be victorious, or sincerity is invincible.
Well, Maharaj, it's a great talk, but we only have, practically speaking, 3 minutes left. In these 3 minutes, I'd like you to give advice to those who's watching our show, Swami to Swami. How would you advise these people?
Keep watching this show.
Okay. And?
And keep watching this show. Record this show. Watch it in a recorded form. Watch it live.
Okay, that's very good.
And then you'll get all the advice that I have to give.
No compromise. No compromise. But what I'd like to say, I'm sure some of the folks and fellas who's watching our show really enjoy it. I really enjoy talk with Maharaj in front of camera, outside of camera. I'm very proud to be a host on this show. I'd like you to send your feedback and reply at our address or chat of live stream TV. It's very important for us. And please send us what you want to know about Krishna consciousness, the topics you want to discuss, the questions that you have, and we'll just put them in front of Maharaj and we'll have a great spiritual discussion just for the service. Hare Krishna.